When you play the Game of Thrones, you
Subscribe and like.
or you die. There is no middle ground.
Alright, hello YouTube, and welcome back to the Grease Comedy YouTube channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking about an argument that I see a lot when I talk about George R. R. Martin and or the books releasing and all that. And I want to talk about the argument of, does George R. R. Martin deserve, or kind of, does he owe us to finish the books? And for me, I think the answer is yes. And I'm going to talk about kind of my reasoning, so don't dislike yet. Don't dislike yet. I'm going to give my reasoning. But before we get into the video, if you guys like to subscribe, like, and comment, please do. It helps channel, reach more people that might like this content as well. And let's get into it. So what I want to say in this is, if you think about any type of job in the real world, if you go off of what my job is I'm a grocery stocker, and then I also do YouTube stuff like this every week. I do it like 5 times a week, so I would consider this like a part-time job almost. I just don't get paid for it. And it's something I like to do. But if you look at any aspect of that, right, and we take the George R. R. Martin approach where it's, okay, let's say I'm unloading a truck at work. I unload the grocery truck sometimes or whatever. And let's say I go to my boss, or in George's case, a publisher, and I say, I will have this truck done by 1 p.m. Let's just say that, for instance, right? If I don't get it done by 1 p.m., and let's say by the end of the shift, it's 4 o'clock, I haven't gotten it done, but I'm like, well, boss, I got 2/3 of it done, but don't worry, I'll have the rest done by tomorrow or something like that. How do you think that's going to look on me, right? That's going to look really bad because I promised that it was going to be done at one time, and then it wasn't. Like, it wasn't even close. It was only 2/3 of the way, right? Well, let's say the next day, I come in, and again, I say it's going to be done by 1 p.m. or noon or whatever. It's not done again. At this point, I'm probably on the edge of getting fired because A, this should not have taken this long, and 2, I keep promising it's going to get done. It's not getting done. So it begs the question of what I'm doing. I'm not really doing my job at that point, and so forth and so forth. So if we compare this to what George is doing, I feel like this is what George is doing. And then instead of maybe I'm focusing on it, maybe I'm saying something like, oh, well, instead of doing the thing that I told you I was going to do, actually, I was filling the milk and like the bread or something at the grocery store. It's like, that's nice and all, but that's not what you were supposed to be doing. Right? That is exactly how I feel about George and why he owes us the book. It's something he continues to promise. He started this series off as something that we thought he would complete. That's usually what happens when you start a book series. It's a reference that I'm going to say with Preston Jacobs and Red Team Review. I saw one of their videos and stuff. It's like if, you have the Lord of the Rings and Tolkien just decided, you know what? I'm just going to take a long time to write Return of the King, and then screw it. I'm just not even going to release Return of the King. So you really get the Fellowship of the Ring and the Two Towers is the end of the series. It doesn't make any sense to why we keep validating George and saying, oh, well, he doesn't owe us anything. And I'm like, he kind of does. A Song of Ice and Fire is what put George on the map. He is able to have a good lifestyle because of the people that like A Song of Ice and Fire, right? And I am not one of those people, right? I came in from the show, right? The show got me very interested enough that I wanted to read the books and find out more information about that, and that's why I became really invested in this series. So for me, this argument wouldn't work, but for a lot of people that are going to be watching this video, a lot of people that are really invested, you have had people since 1995 supporting you and continuing and getting you to the point where you can live a very lavish lifestyle. And I do understand the idea that, okay, he hit his peak of being known and being kind of in this rich upper class a lot later in life. So you want to be able to do those things. But the thing is, you're destroying your own personal legacy and your name of going down as one of the better writers in fantasy, right? Because if you leave it as is, right, eventually you're going to be forgotten. I'm sorry, a book series that was almost completed, that was really good, it's not the same, right? It's not going to put you down as one of the best writers. You'll always be that one writer where it's like he was the writer that could never get anything done. And if you look at some of these other things he's been putting out the last few years, it's almost like something to the publishers, like I talked about with the analogy of my job, right? That it just seems like he's doing the milk and the bread. He's putting out stuff just to satisfy his publisher or his boss that, you know, that he's doing something, right? He's not doing just nothing. And you look at a lot of these books that they're really just world building. They don't really have more story to add. They just are kind of going off of recycled content. If you look at the book that's coming out this year, at the end, it's like an encyclopedia type thing. It's recycled content. It's really not adding anything to the story. It's something that George really probably won't even have to put that much effort into, but it's just something to satisfy publishers. If you look at it like YouTube, even YouTube, I'll reference it to this. If I just, you know, I upload 5 times a week, let's just say 3 weeks, right? I didn't say anything and I just stopped uploading. Do you think when I came back from uploading that YouTube, which is more or less like my boss almost basically, with how it recommends my content and stuff, do you think it would recommend my comment or my content to you guys in the homepage, the recommended feed, as much as it does now? No. YouTube would not wait for, and that's something I've learned with doing YouTube, is that consistency is very key, especially early on, that you can't get away with uploading, you know, once every 2 weeks or something like that. You have to consistently be putting your videos out there to where YouTube recognizes that you're consistent and you have the kind of people that want to watch your videos. If I was like George and just did that, then, you know, or if it's like, if I did a video that maybe I promised to you guys, maybe you guys said you wanted me to do a video on something, and a lot of you agreed. A majority of people wanted to see this a lot, and I just said, oh, yeah, I'm going to get it done. I'll do it. And then I don't upload any videos for 3 weeks. And then I just start putting maybe one other video that nobody cares about and that you guys don't want to see. And then you're all wondering, okay, where is the video you promised? That is almost the equivalent of what George is doing, just in a very smaller scale. And when people say, you know, he doesn't owe us, I kind of disagree on a lot of that. I don't agree with that thinking. To me, I think as someone that started this journey and has gotten so many people invested, and these people have helped his way of living and have made him kind of living this luxury life, he deserves to finish the story. And he can do whatever he wants after that. I mean, hell, he himself does not have to finish the story. He has 5, you know, writers that he has under him, and then has like 2 writers that are for other stuff, that he could just sit here and just be telling them the overall outline and be telling them, you know, what stuff he wants to be involved. He could be giving them a rough outline of what he wants to happen with Arya, with all these characters, and eventually the book would get done. But he's not going to do that because he has too much pride. He has too much of, I want to do this myself. It's my own thing. And the problem with that is, okay, but George, you're not writing it. And even if you are, it's probably not even 60% of the way through yet. That's just the problem for me. George, to me, I don't think will ever give the rights over to someone else to continue the story. And he does not have anybody that's going to pick up the story after he dies, you know, whenever that happens. Hopefully he lives forever. But it just doesn't make sense to me as to why he continues to put this off and continue to not get it done when he could easily cement himself as one of the greatest fantasy writers of all time. If you look at all the other things he's done writing-wise, none of them have even gotten close to the kind of success A Song of Ice and Fire has hit. And that, to me, just, it shows a lot. It just shows a lot to me because, like I've talked about in other videos, these spin-off shows are not going to do well. And it's something that Preston Jacobs and Red Team Review talked about in their video from 10 days ago that I'll probably link in this video, is that these spin-off shows are very weird spin-off shows. To the average fan, no one's going to care about them, right? The Sea Snake, no one's going to care. Nobody is even going to know who the Sea Snake is as a casual fan. Nymeria, and all the Dornish stuff. Why would an average fan who liked Game of Thrones, who probably hated Dorne, have any interest in that? Like, there's just... House of the Dragon is probably the best one because it is one of the most interesting time periods in A Song of Ice and Fire and that whole history. And it's one of the things that's at least mentioned in Game of Thrones, the TV show. So for the casual fan, it might have some interest. And it has the dragons and stuff like that, so you'd have a lot of interest there. But these other spin-off shows just feel like they said in their video with Preston Jacobs and all that, that it very much feels like just a cash cow where they're just kind of milking George as much as they can and get enough out of him before he dies. And it's sad because George building this, I think he thinks he's going to build some more of his legacy without having to kind of finish stories. But in my opinion, it's quite the opposite. I think this is going to continue to diminish his legacy. I don't think people are going to care about these shows. I just don't. I think if he does not finish these books, I just think his legacy will be gone. I think he'll be again, like I've said multiple times, the guy who just could not finish his books, and it really is sad to think about, but that's what I wanted to talk about in this video, about the argument of does he owe us the books? And it's something that I think has consistently been there, but I personally am on one side of that argument where I do believe he owes us the books. I think when you just look at anybody else's work in real life, whether that be you're a manager of a company, whether you're, I don't know, you're something random, you're someone that works in computer science or something like that, or in IT. If you're working for these things and you're not getting your work done, or you're promising your work's going to be done later on and you continuously miss those dates, you are going to get fired. Or at the very least, you're going to be put in a worse position and a lower standing with whoever your boss is, whether that be a boss, the owner. And to me, it shows kind of how much he doesn't care, in my opinion, anymore. I've made a few videos about this in the last 2 weeks, but to me, George just doesn't want to get the books done. I don't think he wants to create another more of a story anymore. And that is kind of how I see it. As depressing as it is, that is kind of how I stand. So thank you guys all for watching this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.
If you think this has a happy ending, you haven't been paying attention.